Welcome back, everyone, to the Unclassified podcast. Next week will be our one-year anniversary, I think, which is exciting. But before we get into any important matters, it's very important that you guys like, comment, and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. We also have memberships available, and I think we may be unrolling a hot new membership perk. They're saying maybe the hottest perk, and that makes it sound like we're going to debut like a fireman's calendar, the two of us. Who knows? But we are doing that, so if you're interested in that, give us a subscription to that membership. You can do it via YouTube. But, Preston, the president has uncovered an infinite money glitch. I have not told you about this all week because I wanted to get your live reaction on the podcast.
Okay, great.
So,
Always
the
works out
president,
well.
Donald John Trump, as you may know him, is suing the U.S. government in his own personal capacity for $230 million. Right? Now, he says that he is the ultimate decider on if the government then settles with him for the $230 million. And he says that he thinks they will settle because, well, he's the guy doing it. And so, now, the U.S. government will pay Trump $230 million from the Treasury in order to settle a lawsuit into the very real crimes he committed in attempting to overthrow the U.S. government on January 6th, stealing classified documents, and I'm sure the New York fraud trial's in there too. And so he is suing them, and it's an infinite money glitch. So you're the president, sue the government in your personal capacity, and then as president, force them to settle. And here's the kicker. He says he doesn't have to tell us if he settles. He says it can be confidential. So I got a feeling if
What's
we ever have
confidential
elections,
about it? Like, you're telling me we wouldn't know if that was settled or not? I feel like, all right, yeah, confidential.
I mean, he'd be screaming from the rooftops. But he says that it would be confidential and that he wouldn't have to tell us. So I have a feeling that when you take the oath of office in 2029, you're going to go to the Treasury and you're going to find out it's been emptied. That there is no money in there. Is that not the craziest thing you've heard in this lawsuit here? I mean, what are we doing?
It's not something I ever would have. Yeah, all right. I mean, congratulations on figuring that out, I guess. I didn't. Has this not, I was going to say, has this not been done before? But, of course, it's not been done before.
No. And if anyone else did it, they'd be impeached and in jail. All right. I will say this is something that's cutting through, though. I've seen a lot of conservative pundits be like, what are we doing here? Like, this is really dumb. And I've even seen Mike Johnson flounder on it. Go, well, I haven't seen anything about it. Yeah, you have, Mike. You and I both watch the 3 p.m. Yap Hour every week. Can we talk about that really quick, folks? We got a great show ahead of us. We're talking about Ukraine, we're talking about Venezuela, we're talking about the new, very impressive press corps in the Pentagon. But just to talk about this really quick, what do you think about the 3 p.m. Yap sessions, where every day there's an announcement? And there's no announcement ever.
It's tough. Yeah, I tuned in to the one this week. I know you watch more of them than I do, but this one they said it was about the cartels, and we saw some movement in Venezuela. Actually, that day we had a B-1 bomber conduct kind of a show of force off the coast of Venezuela, which Trump was asked about, and he said it didn't happen, but that was like the Pentagon said it happened, and it was on flight radar, so that was a weird deal. But I thought there was going to be something about that, but instead they just went around the group talking about how great everybody is and how good of a job everybody's doing. I don't really care about that. I thought there was going to be some sort of big announcement. So I was waiting for something, like I've authorized strikes inside of Venezuela or whatever it might be. Marines are going ashore right now and something crazy. And it just kind of came and went and then went on for a long, long time. These are like 2 to 3 hour sessions. And something I can't help but wonder when that happens is like, these are people with a lot of responsibilities, supposedly, right? The heads of these different agencies. And they just have like 2 to 3 hours blocked off in the middle of their week to like just, without end, just keep talking. I don't think I have the time to do that right now. Like if somebody said, let's get on a quick call and it goes two hours over the time limit, my week is starting to fall apart. And maybe that's a me issue. But it's crazy that we've got like the Attorney General, Secretary Hegseth. I don't think Rubio was there. He dodged a bullet on this one. But like all of these senior officials just sit there for like 3 hours as the president answers questions from the press. It's kind of crazy. Multiple times a week, right? Like this is a regular occurrence.
It's daily, dude. It's daily. Every day there's an announcement from the president. And it is, usually like, oh, India's not going to buy oil from Russia anymore. But he's, and this is like for the 27th time he says this. And then he goes, he basically takes a piece of paper, scrunches up, throws it in the trash can, and then the press just starts lobbing questions at him. And I have to say, I don't like blaming the media for things. Because we are, in many ways, the media as well. And I should say the mainstream media is not responsible for this, but there are some people there in that press corps, the White House press corps, whose sole job is to basically instigate the president into causing issues. They ask some leading questions. So basically, I mean, any given day, you'll just see a guy go, Mr. President, what are you going to do about Boston, Massachusetts? What's going on in Boston? But he never asks follow-up, what's going on in Boston? He just goes, we're going to look into it. We're going to handle it.
We're going to take care of it.
I don't like the mayor. I'm going to clean up the crime there. Sir, what are you going to do about Columbia, Ohio? We're going to look into it. We're probably going to do troops there. Maybe FBI. Maybe we might bomb it. And it's just, they just instigate it, and it's so annoying. Every day. Our only reprieves on the weekends. And that's why everyone thinks he dies when we don't hear from him for a few weeks. So.
Few weeks, few days.
Few days. Even a few hours, dude.
So to go back to again, there's this concept of like a lot of what Trump brought in or the idea of him coming in would be running the government more like a business. I can't, like, the idea of grabbing your board of directors or all senior vice presidents and bringing them together for on-camera sessions multiple times a week is insane. Like, if they have that amount of time in their schedule, there's something falling through the cracks. There is. Like, So in this one specifically, I can't remember everybody that was in the room, but you had Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, didn't say anything the entire time, was just sitting there. And the entire time she's sitting there, she's not doing any other work. And, like, just there for 3 hours. We had Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, again, there for 3 hours. Or let's round down and say it was 2. 2 hours out of his day. He spoke for, like, 70 seconds. You had the Secretary of the Army, Driscoll, was there. Didn't speak at all. Like, just sat there and listened. These are very senior people with a lot of responsibilities. The idea that you're pulling them together and they're showing up so consistently, like, I don't know. I feel like I'd be really frustrated in that position. Like, what do you mean I have to go again? I didn't say anything last time. This has nothing to do with me. I just have to sit there and listen, and then, yeah.
Dude, well, I'll tell you, who else is annoyed with him? Not just the cabinet secretaries. Canada, they had trade negotiations cut off because they played a speech of a Reagan trade speech talking about how tariffs are bad. And Donald Trump then took the tarmac yesterday after severing trade negotiations to say Ronald Reagan actually loved tariffs. And I was like, when I think of Ronald Reagan, that is the one thing I always think about is how much he loved
protectionist trade policy. Yeah,
how much protectionist trade policy and regulations. That is what I think of when I think of Ronald Reagan. And he said that Canada cheated on the commercial. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I've seen some people say it's AI. I don't think I have seen this speech of Reagan talking about the tariffs. It's definitely a real speech. So I don't know what he's talking about. But Canada aired it again during the World Series last night. And how great is that?
That's a poke in the eye, isn't it? And then with Toronto with the win too. All right.
Yeah, I mean, so speaking of which, who are you rooting for in this World Series? Do you have a dog in the fight?
Indifferent, yeah.
I
don't follow baseball up.
Saw someone say, how can the Blue Jays be America's team if they're in Toronto? And this guy replied and said, brother, if the Dodgers are playing the Taliban, I'd have on a burqa rooting for the Taliban.
Okay. Didn't realize the Dodgers were that hated.
And I was like, that's pretty good. So, anyways, but speaking of the Taliban and bad guys, Ukraine.
Let's stay domestic here for a second. Can we talk Pentagon press corps?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
esteemed journalist here in the Pentagon press corps. Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll take it. This seems like it's going to be a swing and a miss. I can't understand for the life of me how this is going to land with, if you step outside of the terminally online people that just hate any mention of media, and you know the ones where you can cite the Associated Press or Reuters, or it doesn't matter. Like if it's a literal quote of a senior official, but it showed up in CNN or ABC, they're going to say that it's inaccurate. That degree of hatred for the press, which I think is more online than walking down the street here in Murfreesboro, for what it's worth. But outside of that, this feels like just a swing and a miss. Like, so what happened is the Pentagon put out these new policies saying that the press had to adhere to it, and the restrictions were pretty silly, in that what they really hammered publicly is different than what the actual concerns were from the media. And that kind of tells you there's more to this story than maybe is on the surface. So Secretary Hegseth was very adamant, and you'll see this in a lot of the Pentagon commentary since, the press can no longer roam freely through the Pentagon, and they have to wear badges at all times. Well, talk to anybody in the Pentagon. Like, the press does not roam freely. And everybody in the Pentagon wears a badge at all times. Like, that's not anything new. You have to do that. In fact, starting in May, the press had their access restricted even further. So you've got this badge, and it allows you into certain areas and does not allow you into others. The entire Pentagon is not just like littered with classified documents and war plans. They have a food court. They have a CVS, right? And those workers there do not have top secret clearances. So, like, if you go into the food court, you're not going to hear the subway worker talking with, Mrs. Fields' cookie person about strike plans in Venezuela. It's not a thing. Now, the press was only allowed in a few areas. That was restricted even further in May, to where the press actually had access to fewer areas than the food court workers, which is insanity, but that was the fact. So they already were not roaming freely. So for that wasn't a thing. They already had to wear badges, as does everybody in the Pentagon. You can't get into the Pentagon without a badge, so that's just another thing that's kind of made up. The last piece was that the press could not solicit any information that was not overtly released by the Pentagon for publication. And doing so would be considered a criminal act. And where the organizations came out on this was like, hold on real quick. Like, a lot of what we do is the Pentagon will put out a statement, and then they will talk to their sources that'll say, no, it wasn't one airstrike, it was 3. Or, no, this is a group we've been tracking for the last 2 weeks, this was not an overnight, whatever it might be. Or, actually, it looks like there might have been civilian casualties here, we're still kind of cleaning that up, even though the official statement said we can verify there were none. And then they go back to the Pentagon people and say, wait a minute, my sources say this. And they dig just a little bit to try to figure out exactly what the story is. That would have been considered a criminal act by the Pentagon. That's insane. So these organizations across the political spectrum, from the New York Times, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, Associated Press, Reuters, Newsmax said no. Wall Street Journal, Fox News, they said, we're not doing this. This is absurd, guys. We're not going to essentially give up editorial control to the Pentagon. And just be what are they even doing there at that point? That was not great. The counter to that is they're still doing their job. They're still reporting. They just don't have access inside the Pentagon anymore. Their badges were removed. I do think that there is enough dislike for the media that nobody's going to feel, the average American's not going to feel bad that the people at the New York Times don't have the same access they did a few weeks ago. But here's the twist. They were replaced with new media. And the new media is wild. So we got
the biggest group of ass kissers I've ever seen in my entire life. And that says a lot, because I watch these Trump cabinet meetings.
So Tim Pool, his team is in there. We've got
Tim Pool, paid by the Russian state through tenant media.
Allegedly. I hear he's rather litigious, so allegedly. Turning Point USA, I did not even know they had a news organization therein. Mike Lindell of My Pillow fame decided at some point
loser.
recently
Yep.
to start a news organization. They are credentialed for the press. Alex Jones, what's Infowars? One of his correspondents is an official press correspondent or Pentagon correspondent now. So the headline here, and this one's starting to get more traction, is like the Associated Press was replaced with Alex Jones, and it's like how many people are going to see that and be like, yes, we're going to get more better coverage now than we did. It's just such a weird, yeah.
Here's what I will say. All of them are ass kissers. I don't trust Alex Jones, but I do feel like he will not roll over. I guess it'll depend on the person they send. But the Alex Jones I know is absolutely totally nuts. But he is incredibly skeptical of the federal government. Maybe that has changed, and he is now big Fed guy now that Trump's in office. But the Alex Jones I grew up seeing the clips of and making fun of was deeply skeptical of the federal government. So maybe InfoWars does do a good job there.
InfoWars, that's it.
And I think I'm being incredibly generous of what I'm saying right there. But for the rest of them, I mean, what a group of ass kissers, dude. I mean, you have
And
Jack
it's not
Pacevic
even
there.
Limited, yeah, the Pizzagate guy.
Yeah.
Limited reach too. When you look at these channels outside of X, which I am convinced the stuff there is artificially boosted in a lot of ways. I just over and over and over and over again, more than any other platform, what we see on X is not real world, and I don't see that same divide on other platforms. But outside of that ecosystem, which is a small ecosystem, all things considered, the smallest, mainstream social media app, these organizations just don't have that much reach, especially when you put them up against Reuters and NBC and CBS and the Wall Street Journal and in Military Times. It's crazy that we went, to put it bluntly, hyper partisan, hyper niche for Pentagon coverage. I don't like it. There's nothing good about that, and I think it's going to be a hard sell to the American people if that even. I guess the counterpoint to that is we have so many other. We're not even the American people aren't even talking about the coming invasion of Venezuela, so it's probably not even going to register. But pretty wild swing of events at the Pentagon in the last couple of weeks.
So I will say, a good book for all the listeners, if you're interested, is called How to Stand Up to a Dictator, The Fight for Our Future by Maria Reza. She is a journalist in the Philippines, and she talks about how Facebook and Twitter destabilized the Philippines in intentional collaboration with Duterte in order to create a dictatorship there. And currently she's facing a life sentence for reporting, basically. But it's a great book, and I highly recommend it to everyone. But I think you're on to something there, FX. Definitely botted. There's no way these people are real, and I would not be surprised to find out that most of the traffic is from out of the country, if we're being TBH. I will say it's also on the note that people are not tuned in and following. The government's been shut down for 25 days now, and it's not even story number 5. I don't even know if it's above the fold still, right? The east wing of the White House is gone, right? I don't even know if these things are above the fold, because we have 9,000 different military deployments inside the United States and stuff. So, I don't know.
Another piece here is I want to hit on this because, again, I think it's not getting the appropriate coverage. But the arguments for this, or saying that this is a good move, is and there's a sense here of maybe they're fighting the wrong fight, because technically they don't need access to the Pentagon to do their job. It makes it easier. Because they can just walk down the hall and ask questions of the press people, public affairs people of the Pentagon, not
you can
the
call
commander
on the phone,
of
too.
Southcom. What?
You can call the press people on the phone.
That's the thing. So, is it easier if you just go around the corner and say, hey, Ben, quick question on this operation yesterday? Yes, no doubt. But they do still have phone numbers. They do still have email addresses. Now, this Pentagon, supposedly from a lot of different press outlets, has been very limited in their responses. So you could see why they would want to be in person if their phone calls aren't getting answered. but they are still going to report. One of the pushbacks here was, well, the leaks have to stop. And I have a problem with that mindset. First off, the leaks are not going to stop. Removing the press, again, that little fancy device you were talking about called a phone, everyone has one.
Yeah.
If the leaks are going to get, like, the leaks will not stop because the Atlantic no longer has a reporter in the Pentagon. In fact, the most famous leak of the last year had nothing to do with Jeffrey Goldberg being in the Pentagon. It had to do with his phone number being on the phones of the people in that Signal group chat. Mm-hmm. So, like, leaks are going to continue. And they already have. Like, we are still seeing leaks about current operations. We also have this thing where we assume the term leak means that it is counter to U.S. national security or that it's harmful to our troops. And, like, yes, there have been cases. In fact, I would argue that Signal chat, there was a real fine line there with Jeffrey Goldberg of when do you put this information out. And I think it was a smart move by him waiting to release some of that until after the operation had taken place. There are things that could put our troops in harm's way and undermine national security priorities. There are also stories that are leaked that the Pentagon does not want out that is in the U.S. best interest. Think of it, what is it, the Pentagon Papers back in Vietnam?
Yeah.
Think that was an important one for the American people to find out about? Right? Or how about the countless times in Iraq or Afghanistan where we accidentally killed civilians? And the official line was that we did not. And it slowly came out that the targeting process was flawed and we hit a wedding party instead of a group of Al-Qaeda fighters. Like, those leaks, I want that stuff to come out. I have a hard time arguing that that is information that should be withheld from the American people. So there are leaks in the Defense Department finding out fraud, waste, and abuse, finding out that our priorities are not aligned. What about finding out that we are exaggerating something to go to war? Like, we want those leaks to come out. That is in our best interest. And I think in general, there's been a bit of a shift to where all of a sudden what the government says is honest, true, and good. And I think there's still a place for leaks, so long as it does not directly endanger any of our service members.
I fully agree. And I also think this is important to note. We are the bosses of Pete Hegseth and of Trump and of that absolute ghoul, Stephen Miller. We're the bosses. Like, this is our tax dollars. We don't work for them. They work for us. And the fact that they continue to treat the public and really the public's advocate, the press, as an enemy fills me with dread for what the future holds, but also should be pretty clear to Americans on how they think of you, right? Like, we pay for it, and we also have a right, to know what's going on with our military. Just because Pete Hegseth thinks that something should be private does not mean it should be private. And these leakers valiantly did their time. Well, hold on. Daniel Ellsworth did his time. Chelsea Manning did her time. Edward Snowden ran away like a coward. But the other ones did their time. You get the pardon, and you bring truth to the people. And the people have a right to know that. It's the most American thing there is. And Pete Hegseth should be ashamed of himself. When he wakes up from his hangover this morning, he should be ashamed of himself.
So the high-profile ones are the ones that get the most attention, but it's not those. It's every single day there are off-the-record remarks made anonymously. Those would not exist under this new policy.
That's correct.
Or they shouldn't exist. These would be considered criminal. Let me give you an example here just in the last couple weeks. The Admiral of U.S. Southern Command, or the head of U.S. Southern Command, is retiring 1 year into a 3-year term. He's the one overseeing strikes in the Caribbean, now in the Pacific. And unnamed officials said there was some headbutting in the Pentagon, that he did not agree with the direction these operations were going. Now, it's anonymous. We don't have confirmation of that. But if that ends up being accurate, that's a very important leak. When we look at the possibility of expanding operations in Venezuela, if you have the top commander overseeing that, that sees an issue and decides I'm going to step down, that is very, very important information. And he's not going to do it because he's a professional. He's not going to go on the record and bash the administration.
The truth.
But if he has people underneath him saying, well, I see what's going on and this is actually an issue, that should be an alarm for the American people. That is a leak that we deserve to see. So yeah, it's not just like big, massive dumps of classified data, but Pentagon officials and uniformed personnel every so often saying, "Hold on, there's a little bit more to this," or maybe you guys aren't seeing this side of the story that helps keep us better informed.
I full-heartedly agree, and I am very frustrated by the idea that somehow it is none of the public's business of what's going on down there in Venezuela. And also, as we saw the Trump administration say yesterday, that they will coordinate with Congress as soon as Maduro's body is in custody. I don't know who these jabronis think they are, but like, if you go and you kill Maduro without even briefing Congress, you're going to jail at some point, right? Like, I mean, what are we doing here? And so the complete locking out of the press, the complete locking out of Congress, this is absurd. And I will say this, the fact that they act like they have total authority over everything, right? And now, on November 1st, they're going to cut 50 million people off their food stamps. And they're claiming because they don't have the authority. You believe that they're saying they don't have the authority to authorize the spending on the food stamps. They do. They have a contingency plan that will last up to 10 years. But they say they don't have the authority to do it. I'm sorry. Who are we dealing with here? This guy claims he has authority over everything, right? They act with total impunity, and now they don't have authority to spend on food stamps? This whole thing's ridiculous. This is pathetic. We're in a loser-occupied government. And I think more creators need to speak up about it because eventually they will come for us. Right. And it will not just be reserved for Adam Schiff. So people need to wake up.
Let's talk Venezuela real quick, because this is one where it'd be super cool if Congress decided to talk through it and see what we're actually doing down there. A part of me thinks they are interested in doing that, but, it's not actually happening. I would say they're at least partially to blame. What's that?
They will not be in session again next week. They have worked, I believe, 7 days since June. Mike Johnson will not call them in.
They're not going to have the Venezuela debate, so we will. Yesterday, the Pentagon announced that we are sending the Gerald Ford Carrier Strike Group to the Caribbean, or to Southcom to be specific. Wow, that's a lot. This is our largest, most advanced aircraft carrier, F-18s. Comes with, depending on what else shows up with the vessel, it could be a number of guided missile destroyers, cruisers, maybe submarines. It's a lot. It's a lot of firepower. I've seen people. I don't think it's ideal to talk about like the first time a carrier's been in the Caribbean, because we've sent carriers down there for training exercises. I believe for some humanitarian operations. This is clearly different because they're being used in what appears to be offensive strike capacity. The big takeaway for me on this is we are seeing a very clear realignment of our priorities in the United States when it comes to national security. So that carrier was in the Middle East, in the Mediterranean. Technically, it was in Croatia Wednesday.
Oh, were they getting a tattoo there?
They might be getting a tattoo there. Good connection. I like that. Yeah. So they're on their way back to the Caribbean. Should take about a week. But that means that we are going to have no carrier strike groups in the Middle East. Instead, we will have them in the Caribbean. Again, a very clear realignment of priorities and recognizing that we have finite resources. There's not just a carrier strike group sitting around. If we move them, just like when we kicked off operations against Iran and a few months prior against the Houthis, we reallocated resources from the Pacific. We had to draw down there to ramp up in the Middle East. And we're seeing that right now, drawing down in the Middle East, at least with this naval capability, and reallocating that to the Western Hemisphere, Southern Command, U.S. border security. It's a pretty significant move. And I think when we see the national defense strategy or national security strategy, should those come out sometime in the near future, I wonder if we're going to see that, a clear shift to kind of homeland defense over anything else.
It kind of puzzles me as to what you need a carrier strike group for. 14% of the U.S. Navy is already in the Caribbean. Now you're adding a strike group there? I mean, this is... Oh, what are we doing here? I I don't know. I think if we see the movement of blood, we'll know, but I assume these Navy ships already have that, so we won't see it the way we did with Russia and Ukraine, right? So
Well, with the carriers, it's complicated because they do add a lot of capabilities.
yeah.
We're going to have you could have these F-18s and a lot of reconnaissance aircraft and surveillance aircraft overhead more consistently. It adds another big platform, another big command and control platform in the region. So, like, it is an asset. We also already have a fair number of air bases throughout Central and South America that could be utilized. Maybe we're getting some pushback that those countries maybe don't want us to be launching from their territory to carry out strikes. I don't know. Complete guess. That could be one reason for bringing a carrier in. But when you look at time on station, I think most of our aircraft would be able, we just had B-1s and B-52s, of course, no issue, flying from the United States off the coast of Venezuela. But if you want to put something overhead to kind of monitor ships moving through, it will give them more time on station if they're launching from the Caribbean, from a carrier in the Caribbean.
Right.
A couple other islands there that could work as well, but it's a lot. It's a lot all of a sudden that we've got down there. And kind of hints at the idea that we're probably not just going after some drug boats.
No. It is so puzzling to me that they are continuing this drug thing, especially now that there are allegations. I shouldn't even say allegations, because they haven't even proven that these people have anything to do with drug cartels. But some of these people are innocent people, according to Colombia and, what's the other one? Ecuador? So...
Trinidad.
So
I think
that to me is crazy. That we're just doing this all willy-nilly and there's no kind of processing. And when Trump was asked about this, he said, we don't need a declaration of war. We're just going to, kill people. I believe that is the same. I believe those are the same words. We're just going to, kill people. So, and now he's saying we're going to do land strikes or they're going to go on land. This just seems absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know why Congress isn't doing anything about it. I'm not going to shed any tears over Maduro here, but this is a dumb war. And I've seen dumb wars before. I've seen wars against dictators who we all agree were bad, but it just put us in so much debt. And how many countless lives, American lives, were wasted in Iraq, right? I mean, this is ridiculous.
So,
go ahead.
There is an outlier here that is kind of unique in that any day Trump could pull this off and say, mission success.
Right.
Great job, everyone. We did it. The reason I say that is because there's no clear measure of what success looks like here. We're not going to eradicate the cartels any more than we eradicated the Taliban. It's not going to be a thing anytime soon. So that's not going to be a goal. From what I've seen from President Trump, is he is relatively risk averse when it comes to military operations. He likes to flex, but hasn't really done anything to my knowledge that would really put American soldiers at risk of being killed, captured, or wounded. The Iran strike is a great example. Quick, in, out, done. Not even round two. Don't go after it again.
I mean,
so I
that's that's in his first term, he was doing all this kinds of stuff. Remember the Navy SEALs or the Special Forces operators in Yemen who were killed, and the ones in Somalia as well? They were getting ambushed every other day.
Yeah. So it seems to me like he's not interested in starting a war.
Fair.
And he would rather declare victory. And I think there's a path to get there if we're just going off of words and not actually what happens on the ground. Because we've talked about it before, the flow of drugs is not from Venezuela.
Right.
So whether you start today or you hit a couple drug labs in Venezuela, it's not going to have a material impact on U.S. drug consumption. However, at that press conference they had a couple days ago, you had some wild stats thrown out there by, I think Secretary Noem said fentanyl is down 95% coming into the U.S. or something, where is that number coming from? Right? Like, they threw some out there to where, like, people around the table were congratulating each other, saying, this is incredible, job well done. I haven't seen any stats to match that. And it's hard to understand how, like, taking out 10 drug boats has led to a 50% reduction in the supply of cocaine in the United States. Like, is that for real?
It was all in that boat, yeah.
That doesn't make sense. So if we're just going to claim victory and say, wonderful operation, we did more than anyone else has done, who's going to stand up for the drug cartels? I feel like Trump could do that any day and just walk away.
That is a good point, but I do think, here's what I'd say. I think to a certain extent we are in denial that a war is coming. If any other country had stacked this amount of naval assets off the shore of an enemy nation, or a nation that they call an enemy, we would say, hey, there's about to be a war happening here. And I think we're kind of like expecting it to be like spring of 2021, where Putin puts all the assets there and then pulls it away. But yeah. I think this is going to be like February 22nd, 2022.
One thing I'm noticing is the shift in terminology. Just within the last week, we have seen Secretary Hegseth in the Pentagon refer to these cartels as Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere more and more. And I think that's notable. We saw the original shift from cartels to terrorist organizations.
Right.
And you got to think of the sale of this war to the American people. We go to war with terrorists. All right, we kill terrorists. Got it. That shift happened. I don't know that it landed as much as people had hoped. So now they're saying these are the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere. You saw what we did to Al-Qaeda, we're going to do that here. And I think that lands more because if you were to walk up to a random American, the next person you see on the street, you say, are you worried about Tren de Aragua or are you worried about the Cartel of the Suns? They're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? But if you say, are you worried about Al-Qaeda? They will at least have heard that term before. So I think there's something intentionally being done to kind of tie these groups terminology-wise to Al-Qaeda to make them a more coherent target. Whether that leads to actual military action or not, I think it's kind of setting the stage.
I wonder if it'll work because, sorry, but drug cartels are just not Al-Qaeda. These are not ideologically fanatic organizations. These are, they're drug cartels. They're drug dealers. So the mafia and the mob, I just don't see them as terrorists, and I am skeptical that the American people will buy it as a rationale. I'm also skeptical that any free-thinking American would buy it as a rationale, right? So it just seems to me as though this is aimless, and I wonder what is the push behind all this happening, right? It is interesting, I will say, on a side note, that there were survivors, right, in one of these most recent strikes, and their home countries let them go. They didn't even prosecute them. So that it is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, let me ask, do you think they are killing drug traffickers in these boats, or do you think it is civilians? What do you think the split is?
I think it's almost all people associated with drug cartels. Mm-hmm. I don't know the inner workings of these organizations. It's not like some leadership figure hopping on this boat across the Caribbean, right? They're hiring people for that. In some cases, it would make sense that they probably hire fishermen, people that are familiar with, some of these transit lanes and boats and being out on the water. So I'm sure that that's probably being the waters there being intentionally muddied, saying this guy was a fisherman. It's like, yeah, he was a fisherman, but he also moonlit like running drugs. Like that's probably not the craziest thing in the world to happen. The only ones where, and then when looking at these boats, this is the challenge is I don't think that we should be going off of that boat looks like a drug boat, so let's blow it up. Rand Paul had a good comment the other day that said the Coast Guard, when looking at all the boats off the southern coast, they board everything they think likely has drugs, and 25% of those are just random vessels that have nothing to do with cartels or drugs. So the Coast Guard, who's very, very good at this identification process, only has a 75% success rate. That makes me think we should not be using that for lethal strikes.
Right.
25% error is not okay in this. Like, there's no reason we should be doing that. So I'm trying to walk the line here between, other than the statements from Colombia saying one of these was a fisherman, although they pointed to a boat that did look like it was pretty robust in terms of its capacity. Outside of that, I don't have any evidence that these are just regular civilians going about their everyday tasks. But I also don't think what we're using right now in terms of publicly available information for targeting is acceptable. I think we need to have more details than that.
Makes sense. Did you see the New York Times article about how Admiral Halsey, Halsey, am I saying that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Stepped away after a tense meeting with Pete Hegseth over the strikes there? That makes me very skeptical as to what's going down here.
Yeah. I don't know if we're ever going to... We should hear more about that. There's been like continued kind of leaks about what those issues might have been. But it does raise another question of if... Let's assume, for argument's sake, that there's some sort of illegality happening in these strikes.
Right.
In some way, shape, whatever that might be. And you've got the head of Southcom stepping down because he voiced his objection and it didn't stand, so he's leaving. On the one hand, I like that. Again, this is all hypothetical. On the one hand, I like that because he's taking a stand. But on the other, like, if nothing changes and the people that have a moral compass stand up and say, this is illegal and I'm not going to participate in an illegal operation, we get into a pretty nasty place pretty quick where all of the people who would stand up are stepping away. Yeah. So I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. Yeah.
It seems bad, I think, to put it lightly. We'll see what comes of this. I mean, it seems like any given day now they could launch this invasion. I don't know how many more assets they need there, right? But also they reject all of Maduro's concessions. So it's not really clear to me what they want, right?
It's a perfect... I think this is the perfect lead into the Ukraine conversation, for what it's worth.
It is. So last week, as many of you know, our episode was labeled Trump Reverses on Ukraine 414 times. Well, I think we're up to 417 times since that episode. So, Preston, would you like to walk us through what happened here with our reversal?
Here's the connecting thread between Venezuela and Ukraine, and I think it applies to most things. There is no strategy.
Yes.
It is a series of actions. You push and pull on different knobs and levers, and over time something happens or it doesn't. And I'm hard-pressed to find anything in the international stage where that's not, like with our foreign policy and national security, where that doesn't seem to be the approach. We've been all over the map. And I think that's something worth considering with Venezuela is what if we don't actually have a strategy there and we're just kind of trying things? Need to keep that back in mind. Now, with Ukraine, that's pretty clearly the case. We went in the span of about 48 hours from Zelensky needs to accept this ceasefire proposal to Russia saying, what are you talking about? We don't accept any of that. To the United States layering sanctions on Russia for the first time during the Trump administration. Great move. I wish it would have come earlier. I think my personal opinion is that Trump was too optimistic about how he might be able to convince Putin to accept some concessions in this conflict, or how much Putin would listen to Trump. And I think that the conditions on the ground today are essentially unchanged from when this administration came into office. So we just kind of, look, the pessimistic side of me is we wasted 10 months. Didn't really make any progress. We kind of did a dance, and we're right back where we began. I don't think we're necessarily worse off. We're certainly no better. But I want to pair that with some optimism. They actually did it. The sanctions are in place. This is not a 2-week deadline. They're in place right now. And they were backed up or supplemented with the 19th round of European Union sanctions. Good.
Beautiful.
Positive. Some sort of pressure, the first pressure we have seen applied against Putin by the United States since the Trump administration came into office. I think net, it's a positive step.
I would agree. I was glad to see him back away from the Putin meeting. Thankfully, Rubio blew up his meeting with Lavrov. I assume Rubio intentionally did it, right? We'll see. I would still like to see tomahawks push through. I would still like to see more military aid. What did worry me was Trump said that Putin had mentioned nuclear to him. But it was interesting to hear Trump say it because he often calls it the N-word and says you can't say it. But this time he did just say it, so hard R and all. And he said that Putin threatened with nuclear, and he said he didn't want that. And I was like, oh. So wait a minute. That did worry me a bit because I was like, oh, so you bought the nuclear war threats that Putin's always yapping about. Did you pick up on that?
We're buying it though. That's the thing,
Yeah.
and that's where part of my frustration comes in here. You just said, hey, it looks like Rubio finally talked him back and said we're not going to do the meeting. Great. What about the last 10 months?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if Rubio is the voice of reason here, where has he been? Is part of the frustration. And we just got some reporting from this meeting from the Financial Times. It was some European leaders that were briefed on the meeting after the fact, where like Witkoff is in there. The guy has no idea what he's doing. I think he is the face of some of these things. We can't do better. Come on. Like, the guy just straight up is reciting Russian propaganda to Zelensky about ending the war, saying, well, Russia has included all these territories in their constitution. Like, for Christ's sake, the entire world said, you can't do that, guys. You can't just declare that part of another country is now yours. But that was part of the reasoning Witkoff was using? Really? There's nobody in the inner circle that steps in and says, whoa, wait, hey, hold on. That's not a real thing. And we voted against that at the United Nations and came out very strongly against it just a few years ago. You can't all of a sudden backtrack and just take the Russian line of thinking on that one. Like, where's the adults in the room? Where's the one that says, like, hey, Steve, no.
I mean, you present a good point here. That is ultimately the issue with having people who have no loyalty but to the almighty dollar as your negotiators, right? I think this personal diplomacy style that Trump takes on, that Witkoff takes on, does not work when these people are not ideologues. Because Joe Biden also had the personal diplomacy type thing going on, right? But the difference is that Joe Biden he was an ideologue in the same way most U.S. presidents are, right? Where they do truly believe in the American world order, and they do truly believe in the United States and its values. But Trump and Witkoff don't, right? Trump doesn't know what that is, and he's not concerned with it. And Witkoff is loyal to Trump and money. So, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And that is why they keep reciting Russian propaganda. That is ultimately the issue. And so, Rubio, for as far as we know, even if, his statements on the Sunday shows are bleak, is that person who is an ideologue. He does believe in the United States. So, I mean, it's good to see him kind of getting in control. But I don't know. I'd like to see J.D. Vance go on like a 6-month vacation to Hawaii, and maybe they can lock Stephen Miller up in like Gitmo or something, and Rubio can, Patriots can take control here of Ukraine, and we can get more aid to them. We could do a whole lot of stuff because, for the big game Trump talks, he just always is so scared of Putin, and it is so weird to me. Who cares? He's bald, dude. Putin looks like grown-up Caillou. For someone as vain as Trump, you'd think he would be like, dude, you're bald. I'm not listening to you. Right? I mean, there's a lot of power in being a bald man, but there's a lot of power in being a bald man. You know who's not bald, though? You kind of look like Obi-Wan Kenobi, dude.
This sweatshirt?
No, the hair. You kind of look like Ewan McGregor. Who's the guy who plays
Ewan
McGinnis? Is that his name? You know what I'm talking? The guy who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay, I like it. That sounds like a compliment.
Yeah. Anyways,
let's ride that right in some questions because you got a couple here.
I do. Wait,
they're gonna be interesting.
Do we want to talk about the private funding of the military?
Yeah, that's ridiculous, and that's absurd. It shouldn't happen, and the fact that we're even having that conversation is a failure.
Yes.
So,
all right. So we have some questions from our millions of trillions of fans here. So this comes from Kyle Davies. He's a member. We love our members. He says, "Do you think we will ever see a third-party candidate win a presidential election?"
Defer to you, Ben. This is much more your area of expertise.
That's so as it stands
I want to
now,
add to it. I'm going to add to it.
Okay.
What would it answer that? But then, what would it take to get there?
So third-party candidates used to be pretty normal. Like there was Ross Perot in the '90s. Bill Clinton won the presidential election twice, so I believe only 39% of the vote, 35% of the vote. Ross Perot was this billionaire who ran infomercials at night, and he ran as the third way between Clinton and Bush, and he pulled some pretty good numbers. He was leading in polling going into the 1996 election, but then for whatever reason he dropped out. But then a month before the election he re-entered. It was bizarre, but then he lost. So I think what will it take? You're going to need a really charismatic candidate. And you'll also need a charismatic candidate who is not bogged down by inter-party drama. So, if they go in like Andrew Cuomo is in New York, where he lost the primary to Mamdani and now he's running as an independent, you can't win that way, right? There's too much drama because you need to pull in voters from both parties. But if you lose a primary, you're not going to win as a third-party independent, right? So I think it needs to be a very charismatic individual who is not really ever part of either party. You probably need Barack Obama if you want to win. Someone like Barack Obama. So, Barack Obama. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead, Preston Stewart.
Can I confide in you a weird dream I had about that subject?
Sure. You're also confiding in all of them, but yes.
I was thinking about this because it is a dream I had 2 or 3 nights ago. Because I feel politically homeless, personally. Mm-hmm. I have my entire life considered myself conservative. Tended to be on the right side of the aisle, and it's been a confusing stretch here, to say the least. I just feel like everything's shifting in these directions that I can't keep up with. I had this dream that it was a battlefield, World War I style, with no man's land, and I was on the conservative side, and we started moving out across no man's land and got stuck, and I was all of a sudden alone out there, kind of taking fire from both sides, and I knew there were other people there because I could hear them, but we weren't together anymore. They were scattered all across this no man's land, catching fire from both directions. And I had this thought of I need to get out of here, but I don't know if moving forward or moving back is more dangerous. I feel like if I move back, I might get shot. And if I continue moving forward, I might get shot because of where I came from. Kind of bleak, but it's this feeling of political homelessness. I don't know. I wonder how many people are in the similar situation.
I mean, it's a very deep, revealing dream, Preston. But I will tell you, register as a Democrat and run for Senator of Tennessee, dude. You'll win. You'll win. All the unclassified people will back you. What's stopping you? Mitt Romney is probably a registered Democrat at this point. We love Mitt Romney. Not then, but now we do, right? So, I don't know.
Honestly, I think part of what gets me is I don't like the tribal nature of any of it, where I have my own views on a lot of different things, and they end up all kind of across the political spectrum. And I hate when you put a label on it, all of a sudden it's well, now you have to, now this is your thing, you got to be this thing, or now you got to be that thing. And it's no, I have different views on a lot of different things that,
Why does
Frustrating.
Ryan
All right.
This is a question from, I don't know how to say that. Uh, just to clarify, it's just a bunch of letters mashed together. It's not a name I'm refusing to pronounce because that sounds crazy. Okay, he says, why does Ryan McBeth keep aligning himself with MAGA influencers? I'm not sure how to feel about his videos anymore. He disregarded Project 2025 and now seems to be friendly with many of the people who support MAGA. Love the podcast.
Yeah, so Ben sent me this one yesterday, and I tried to look into it a little bit. I'm not entirely sure what this is referring to be honest. So I know Ryan has and full transparency, I consider Ryan a friend. He's been incredibly kind and generous to me over the years. I know Ryan has a contract with Newsmax, just like people have contracts with CNN and NBC where he's like a talking head on certain subjects, and they'll call him on to talk about tomahawks to Ukraine, this, that, or the other. He has, I know publicly, but also privately, has defended that, saying there's no editorial control, and he kind of likes, not to speak for him, but I believe he likes being able to reach people that he doesn't think he would otherwise reach. And like, to be fair, the people that are watching cable news is already outside of most podcasts and social media, and then Newsmax on top of that, like that's a pretty niche audience that is probably not coming across Ryan's stuff on YouTube or Twitter. In terms of the alignment with MAGA, I genuinely don't know what that would be. For what it's worth, he, outside the Newsmax thing, and all of the conversations I've had with Ryan, he's not really that political, if that makes sense. He's pretty agnostic when it comes to a lot of that, and tries to just call people out, I think, is more what I've seen. And I've seen him shoot in every direction at this point, I think. I mean, he's drawn some hate in a couple different ways.
You know,
what do you
sometimes
think, Ben? Any thoughts there?
Sometimes when you're a straight shooter, both sides think you're shooting at them, So, I'm not sure that expression makes sense, but you get what I'm saying. I don't know. I haven't seen anything about MAGA of Ryan. I think he tells you what he thinks, right? He strikes me as someone, when I met him, he was very nice. He was very generous with me and good driver. And, got nothing bad to say about Ryan McBeth. We have another question, but this one's for me, okay? So,
yes,
it says, we've heard plenty about Preston's background, but Basement Ben, which is probably a slur and a pejorative, is eerily silent about his past. Something to hide? My theory is he's a Biden deep state spy op sent by Hillary to topple Trump by brainwashing the American population and the world at large with this podcast. Some questions to ponder. Why does he rarely post on Instagram? Afraid of drawing attention? Why doesn't he talk about his past? Part of an indoctrination program since childhood? Why does he live in a basement? I don't live in a basement. I live above ground. And, okay. So, you're kind of spot on. I did work for Hillary Clinton, Secretary Clinton, back in the day. Shout out. Evidently didn't work hard enough. Otherwise, our national nightmare would not be happening right now. And I also did work for Joe Biden as well. I worked on political campaigns for a while, and then I kind of got sick of it, and I was waiting for a job at the State Department, and then I started uploading TikToks, and that took off for me. So I just said, I'm going to be a TikToker instead of a diplomat, which maybe in 40 years will sound crazy. And but I like it. So that's a bit about me. I was, a Biden deep state Hillary op, and but now I'm not. I'm out of that world, and I can't imagine ever going back. I can't believe the hours are grueling, So
you're dodging the second part of that question, though, is why not post more? I mean, you just said it. Like the reason you kind of
So here's what I'll say, and I think perhaps a lot of Gen Z who watch this can relate. There's something about posting on Instagram that feels oppressive, if that makes sense, because so I still haven't gotten over the content creator stigma, I guess, but like to me, I've always kind of been like, I don't know, you see people post and then people don't post, And sometimes you see people post and then no one likes it and you're kind of like, that's goofy. But that doesn't really happen to me because people like me, right? I mean, they're naming cities after me now. They're naming cities. Oh, speaking of cities, shout out to Ben Wheeler, Texas, who's having their Feral Hog Festival this weekend. Can you believe there's a town in Ben Wheeler called a town in Texas called Ben Wheeler? I was supposed to go, but got a bunch of other dumb shit going on. But anyways, so maybe I should post more. I think I will post more because I think the people yearn for the wheeler dealer. So
I don't get it though, because you were doing a lot.
I was posting a lot.
It opened up a lot of doors, and then you just stopped.
Yeah, I just gotta get back on that horse. I gotta get back on that horse, and I gotta ride that horse into town. And I think I kind of got off of it. But yeah, people, I don't know. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should get back into it. I do have. Yeah. One second. I'm gonna show you. I have a video idea. I'll show the crowd too. Hold on.
And now we've got a live look into the wall in Ben's basement. You can tell because there's no windows. Cut off from humanity. If there were windows and he wasn't in the basement, he'd probably show that. The fact that he's not showing that, I think, is pretty indicative that this is a basement dwelling.
Second, I'm turning it on.
Take your time, Ben. We got nothing to do here. Nobody has anywhere to go. Just a Saturday.
Okay, so
on your schedule. Did you have to go upstairs? Did you have to go upstairs to get that?
Fuck you. Look at this. Okay, so for the viewers and the audio listeners can't see. So this is an ecto pack. I had this idea for a video here. See, look at this. It's a real life Ghostbusters ecto pack. It comes with a gun too, right? And I had this idea for a video. Look at this. It lights up, and you put it on your back like this, because like the Ghostbusters did, Anyways,
yeah.
I had this idea of creating a video that's like Ice Busters, maybe. But I was also thinking, in my critiques of the regime, as I like to call it, I could show them using my After Effects skills as ghosts, and I can, argue with them, and then use my gun here, which is a fake Ghostbusters gun, to put them in a ghost trap. What do you think of that?
Okay, yeah. NPSM 7, is it NSPM 7 compliant? Do we know?
Are you allowed, is it considered a threat to put Trump as a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man into a ghost trap? Anyways, all right, so our last question. So sorry for the detour, everybody, but I hope you enjoyed that. For the audio listeners, it is a Ghostbusters ecto pack. I will be using it in a video here soon. But our last questions, these are all about Doug the Pug. That damn dog, dude. So these people are saying that Doug the Pug graduated with honors. Apparently they're giving him honorary degrees. Other people are asking how come he hasn't been indicted yet. What are we doing here? I mean, this dog, dude.
Well, there's a corrupt judicial system. We all know that. It goes back to the 2020 stolen election. Yeah.
If Doug the Pug shows up in the White House next to Trump, that feels
that might be. We might have to shut this down. That might be the end.
We're gonna get arrested. Our door's gonna get kicked in because we're threatening Doug the Pug. So, anyways, folks, that is all for today. We hope you enjoyed the 51st episode of the Unclassified podcast. Next week it'll be a whole year. So we're gonna have a special extravaganza for that one, and we're gonna be in Halloween costumes because it's gonna be Halloween, right? So. We will see you.
I've not committed to that.
Well, maybe we dress up as each other, but the issue is that we dress too alike. So, yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.